Hi friends, welcome back to Parnika tutorials. In this video, I want to discuss about PLSQL, like disadvantages of SQL, PLSQL, features of PLSQL and structure of PLSQL block. So I sincerely request everyone to watch the complete video for better understanding. First, let me discuss about the disadvantages of SQL. SQL does not provide the programmers with a technique of condition checking, looping and branching. Like in programs, we will have the condition checking, like if a certain condition, then we will execute a certain block of statements. If the condition is false, the statements which are there in the else block will be executed. Similarly, we have the looping concepts like for loop, while loop, do while loop. What is the use of that one? If you want to execute a certain block of statements more than once, then we will go for the looping. So those kind of features the SQL does not provide. SQL statements are passed to Oracle engine one at a time, which increases traffic and decreases the speed. Now, if you have a certain statements in SQL, one statement at a time will be passed to the Oracle engine. If you are passing one statement at a time, it will increase the traffic and also the decreases the speed of executing the statement. So this is the one more disadvantage of SQL. Now let me discuss about the PLSQL. PLSQL is basically a procedure-oriented language that enables developers to combine the power of SQL with procedural statement. If you see, we have two terms here, PL and SQL. Already we know SQL. SQL is what? Structured query language. We have DDL statements, DML statements, TCL statements. All these things I have discussed in the SQL. Now you are adding programming concepts like condition checking, looping and branching with the help of PL, which is procedure oriented language. So PLSQL is a block structured language or a procedure oriented language. Block structured means it has a certain block like declaration, session, begin and then exception and then end. You have a certain block and that enables developers to combine the power of SQL with the procedural statements. All the statements of a block are passed to Oracle engine all at once, which increase the processing speed and decrease the traffic. In the SQL, the drawback is SQL statements are passed to Oracle engine one at a time. What is the drawback of that one? Which increase the traffic and decrease the speed. When it comes to the PLSQL, all the statements of the block are passed to the Oracle engine once, which increases the processing speed and decreases the traffic. Now let me discuss about the features of PLSQL. PLSQL is basically procedure-oriented language which provides the functionality of decision making, iterations and many features of procedure programming language. In normally procedure programming language, we have the variable declaration, we'll have the conditional checking like if else, if ladder, and then we will have the loops like for loop, while loop and do while loop, and even we have the functions, all these things. So here PLSQL provides those features. It adds the functionality of decision making, iteration and many features of procedure programming language. So this is the one of the feature of the PLSQL. PLSQL can execute a number of queries in a single block using a single command. So PLSQL will pass all the statements to the Oracle engine at once, and also it executes number of queries in a single block using single command. So this is the one more advantage of the PLSQL. Further, PLSQL also supports the exception handling block. So PLSQL provides a feature to handle the exception which occurs in the PLSQL block known as exception handling block. Let's consider that somewhere you are performing the division A by B and you have the A which is a numerator and B is the denominator. Now if you consider the B value is 0, then what will happen? Normally in mathematics it will be infinity, but in programming language it will raise an exception. So like Java and Python will handle the exception blocks with the help of try, except and finally statement. So whenever there is an exception whatever the program you have written in the try block, the corresponding exception will be handled in the except block in Python. So similarly, PLSQL provides a feature to handle the exception which occurs in PLSQL block known as exception handling block. One can create a PLSQL unit such as procedures, functions, packages, triggers which are stored in the database for reusing for multiple applications. So using PLSQL, we can create the procedures. Function. What is a function? Function is a collection of statements which are executed to perform a certain tasks. And then you have the package. Package is a collection of classes and interfaces. So all these things you can create using the PLSQL, and these features like functions, packages, we can use for several applications. Now let me discuss about the structure of PLSQL. As I said earlier, PLSQL is a block-oriented programming language or procedure-oriented programming language. So you have a structure in the PLSQL. Now the basic unit of a PLSQL is a block. All PLSQL programs are made up of blocks which can be nested within each other. So you have a certain block, and the block consists of declaration section, begin, exception, and then end. We have 4 blocks in the PLSQL, like we'll have the declare, begin, exception, end. The declare block is useful for you to declare the statements. Declaration statements will be there in the declare block. So you can declare all the statements which are required in the program. Similarly, you have the begin block, which is an executable statement. So it consists of all the executable statements. Exception will have the exception handling statements. At the end, you will provide the end block. Now let me discuss much in detail about the each block, like declare, begin, exception, and end. Now declare section starts with declare keyword. You will have a declare keyword. Okay, that keyword specifies that it is a start of the declare block, and it consists of variables, constants, records as cursors can be declared with stores data temporarily. It basically consists of definition of PLSQL. This part of the code is optional. If you don't want to declare any statements, then you can keep it as empty. So any declaration section will have a keyword called declare, and what are the variables you want to declare, you can declare here. Suppose if you want to declare any variable, then you need to write the variable name, and then you need to provide the data type, and then you need to provide the column, and then equal, and then you need to provide the value and with a semicolon. So like this you can declare any variable in the declaration section. Execution section starts with begin and ends with end keyword. So you have the execution section, and it will start with the begin keyword and it will end with the end keyword. So whatever the statements you want to execute in the PLSQL program, those statements you need to provide within the begin and end. This is very mandatory section. With this one you cannot leave it empty. If you leave it empty, then no statements will be executed in the PLSQL program. So this is a mandatory session, and here the program logic is written to perform any task like loops and conditional statements. So what are the statements you want to execute? All the statements you need to provide within this begin and end only. Further, in the execution section, the PLSQL supports all the DML commands, like data manipulation commands like insert, update, all these commands it will support, and DDL commands also, like data definition, language commands like create a table, create a view. All these commands can also be supported in this session. So it supports all the DML commands, DDL commands, and SQL plus built-in functions as well, like SYS date, which is useful for you to compute the current day, date, and then month. Similarly, you will have the lower function. What it will do, it will convert the string to a lowercase. You have the upper function, which will convert the string into uppercase. So all these built-in functions also will be supported in this execution section. The exception section starts with exception keyword. So you will have the exception keyword. This section is optional. So it is not mandatory, which contains statements that are executed when a runtime error occurs. We have various types of errors like syntax errors, logic errors, and runtime errors. Syntax error means if you have done some mistake in the program syntax, those kind of errors will called as syntax errors. It is the programmer duty to rectify those errors to run the program. Similarly, you will have the logic errors. Suppose if I ask you to write a program to compute and verify whether it is an Armstrong number or not. If you have written strong number logic, then it will verify whether it is a strong number or not. It will not verify whether it is an Armstrong number or not. So if you give an input, you will not get a correct output because your logic is wrong. Similarly, we will have a runtime errors. These runtime errors will occur because of wrong input. Let's take that I am performing the division and the denominator you have given the 0. Then it will raise an exception. Similarly, you have declared an array of size 10. If you are accessing the value which is there at the 11th index, if you have declared an array of size 10, then index will start from 0 and go up to 9. If you are accessing an element which is there at the 11th index is not there, then how it will give? Then it will give an exception called index out of bound array. Such kind of exceptions you will raise. These errors will occur because of wrong input. So any exception can be handled in this section. So exception section starts with exception keyword, and this section is optional. You no need to provide always. Whenever you require, then you will provide it, and it contains all the statements that are executed when a runtime error occurs. So I have discussed about the disadvantages of SQL, introduction to PLSQL, features of PLSQL, and structure of the PLSQL block. I hope all the concepts is clear for you. If you still have any doubts related to this concept, feel free to ask me in the comment section. I will try to clear your doubts as early as possible. Thank you for watching the complete video. Have a nice day.